WNST, Towson friends, and some new friends as well. And everybody's there with some memories. If you've been covering the National Football League that long and you get in a plane, you get in a car, you run out to Canton, it's 100 degrees. This guy, much like our partner Brian Billick, was there at the beginning of Randy Moss and certainly wrote a piece about some memories of Randy Moss, and I ran into him on Thursday night as the Ravens and the Bears were doing their thing. Don Banks, he lived here in Maryland, still has a 410 area code, but he's been banging around covering the National Football League for a couple of decades now and was in Canton with all sorts of memories and all that stuff, now doing work for Patriots.com as well as at The Athletic and Bleacher Report. We welcome him back on, one of our defending champions. Nice little weekend they put together out there in Canton, and I think we'll go back in 5-10 years and there'll be a hotel, there'll be a little Disney World there, but it's coming together on the side of the freeway there in the heart of the Midwest, is it not?
It's bigger all the time, Nestor. It's kind of amazing. It's yeah, you're right. It's headed for turned into a football theme amusement park at some point. I remember when the ceremony used to be on the front steps of the Hall of Fame, and that feels like it was a quaint little affair now, considering that they do it in the stadium. They have a huge video board. They really make it a presentation for television. Back then, it was kind of just, exactly what you would have thought. A bunch of guys sitting on folding chairs up on a platform, and induction and gold jacket, and kind of a nice little memory now when you look back, because this thing has grown into, I don't want to say a cottage industry, but the Hall of Fame now is a big entity and a big date on the NFL calendar, and it's getting bigger.
Well, and I think the money invested in the stadium and the owners getting involved. Don, I used to go out there 15 years ago when the Browns got back in the league, and I'd run bus trips out, and we'd stop, and I was always sort of amazed that some of the busts were defaced. It sucked to have all the Baltimore Colts stuff under an Indianapolis umbrella. We were always sort of offended by that, but I always wondered, why is the place sort of kind of a little bit dilapidated? And I think they've gone to great pains to spend a lot of money out there, and especially on the back end of the embarrassment of not getting a game in last year or a couple years ago, whenever it was with the Packers, that the thing's grown up and the NFL's now taking it over. It's very obvious there's a ton of money behind it. Yeah,
no, I think David Baker, the president of the Hall of Fame, when he took office, basically his grand designs were pretty broad and pretty lofty, and you're right. It used to be this kind of nice little quiet institution that I think had some dust and rust on it, and it's a big time event now, and they make a whole week out of it. They call it Enshrinement Week. It starts really Tuesday or Wednesday and goes all the way through a concert with Maroon 5 on Sunday night at the stadium. So the NFL has never been accused of being understated in any of their major events, and I think this one is now right up there, along with the draft and the Super Bowl, that they try to turn into just a spectacle.
Well, I want to talk about the major event that they really sell, which is like the season and the games. And we got the Rams and the Ravens running around this week, kicking some practices up, and they'll play a preseason game. We got more fake football ahead, but I am very optimistic about the Ravens this year, Don, and I, maybe you sense that I'm some bit of a homer or whatnot, but I think this is a particularly interesting year for Harbaugh, for Flacco, for the organization, for DeCosta taking over, for where C.J. Mosley is, for where Terrell Suggs and Eric Weddle and some of the veteran guys, for Crabtree and Smokey Brown and these guys trying to get their careers where they need to be. I expect this team to be playing in January. I don't know about Atlanta or winning a Super Bowl. I'm not going to go there. But this team is certainly capable of winning 10, 11, 12 games for me.
I don't think there's a team in the league this year that has more well-defined sense of urgency than Baltimore, for all the reasons we know. The Lamar Jackson drafting puts that sense of focus and urgency on Joe Flacco. 3 straight non-playoff seasons, 4 out of 5, puts it on John Harbaugh. Ozzie Newsome's last year as a general manager wants to obviously go out, having turned the team and turned the corner a little bit after a dry spell. I just think there's an awful lot of talent has been kind of underachieving in Baltimore. I haven't made my picks yet, but I do believe I'm going to put them in the wild card slot in the AFC in the 10-win range. I like a lot of what they have. I think it's just a matter of, they can't start slow, they can't finish slow. They have to be somewhat consistent. They might have their ebbs and flows this season, as the Ravens historically do. I just think they have to finish the job, and I think they're going to this year. I think there's just a really, motivating sense of now or never.
Where do you stand on Flacco and his place in all of this, and whether he'll still be here a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever? I really love the rebound on him. I think the morning after the Lamar Jackson draft, some people inside the organization and I were sneaking some texts before they picked up round 2. And, what came to me was, we're looking to motivate Joe. Sure, we're not quitting on Joe. We're paying him $25 million, but we think this will light an appropriate fire. And I think 4 months later, it has.
Yeah, I think it's worked kind of exactly as planned. I mean, they added a quarterback because you never want to let that position go stale, or you never want to get into a desperate situation. So they went early rather than late, but I think it has done exactly as you said. I think it has motivated. I think it's clear. Everyone has said he's having his best camp so far, and that he looks re-energized. And I know he doesn't necessarily want to admit that or take the easy connection to Jackson's drafting, but sometimes things are as they appear, and I think in this case it's too obvious to ignore.
Don Banks is our guest. You can find him at Don Banks on Twitter, and, of course, a long time at SI now with The Athletic as well as Bleacher Report and doing work for Patriots.com. We got the Rams in here. I'm going to chase Sam Farmer down now. He's got 2 teams to chase around, and we play the Chargers out in the little soccer stadium the week before Christmas. But several days of Rams practices and a Thursday night fake football game with them. They expect to be good, and where that thing came from and where McVay comes from and bringing the team 3,000 miles and doing a practice here this week. The Rams aren't getting cheated for practice, and certainly they're not getting cheated out in L.A. for expectations where the Manny Machados and the LeBron Jameses live. The Rams are going to come full circle here and full focus this year. There's an expectation that they're going to be good this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a completely different vibe than going into last season. We thought McVay had a lot of, sizzle factor. We thought he had the ability to motivate a team, but we didn't know. Obviously, they put 11 wins on the board last year. Really was a turnaround story, one of the turnaround stories of the year. They certainly didn't maximize what they had set up for themselves in the playoffs by losing at home to Atlanta in their opener. But I think they're a team now this offseason. Obviously, they loaded up on defense. They went with a lot of headline names, getting Talib, Sue, and others. I think they're taking their shot right now. I think they see an opening. Seattle has regressed, obviously, and is an aging team that is rebuilding on defense. They know San Francisco is ascendant as well with the quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think the Rams think they're one half step ahead of San Francisco at least, and they're going for it. And we have seen teams do that before. It hasn't usually worked out. I think this is a little different. I think they added some big names, but by no means is this the dream team quagmire that a lot of teams have fallen into, because I think the young talent is still the core of this group, and it's Goff and it's Gurley, and obviously when he finally gets signed, if it ever gets addressed, Aaron Donald as well, the Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm very high on the Rams. I think they're just in a totally different situation. They're now the chased instead of the chasee, and I think we're going to see how good a coach McVay is this year, because it's one thing to get there, it's another thing to stay there, and that's the challenge now for LA.
Boy, for all these young quarterbacks, I'm watching Trubisky run around last week on Thursday night for the Bears and saying, I wonder what he's going to be, and Garoppolo, and where the kid down in Dallas is in year 3 now, right? And the Goffs and the Mariotas and the Jameis Winstons getting dropped now by Nike. Feels like 1 minute into this thing. I was out in Cleveland, and they got 2 quarterbacks. Hughes says he's going to go with Tyrod. The quarterback and the quarterback play here over the next couple of weeks, there's plenty to look at. The kid in Buffalo. There's just a lot of young guys, including the Lamar Jacksons, who might not even get on the field, that we're going to be watching because the next Carson Wentz or the next Deshaun Watson, we're all waiting to see where that next thing is and who's going to be the 10, 11, 12 win quarterback this year. There's just a lot of names in quarterbacks, a lot of jerseys. They can't all win 12 games.
Yeah, you didn't even mention Josh Allen out in Arizona, another intriguing, I think, at number 10 pick. I agree. I mean, I think that this draft obviously was a huge influx of quarterback talent, and then you pair it with the last 2 or 3 years, and half the league has a real young quarterback at this point, seemingly. And I think whatever coaches say in the end of July and the beginning of August, you take with a grain of salt. Do I believe that the Browns want Tyrod Taylor to win that job? Yeah, I do. If he plays well, I think he will. I think he will be their guy this year. But as we know, in Cleveland, the pressure to get a young quarterback on the field has always been there. I think they'll stand up to it this time better. I think Mayfield will really have to earn that spot, and I think Taylor will really have to give that job away. But there's an awful lot of situations that we just don't know anything about. Buffalo, you mentioned Josh Allen. And I said Josh Allen earlier. I meant Josh Rosen in Arizona. Sorry about that. Josh Allen in Buffalo is running number 3 right now behind A.J. McCarron and Nathan Peterman. That's for now. But, again, Buffalo is one of those situations at quarterback where they have notoriously reacted quickly to any downturn. Last year, benching Tyrod Taylor, inserting Nathan Peterman in that disastrous start against the Chargers out in L.A. I think Josh Allen plays at some point this year in Buffalo, and it's because I don't think A.J. McCarron or Peterman are going to play well enough to own the job. So Sam Darnold in New York, same thing. I think he's going to ascend fairly quickly. I think he's clearly the future, and I can't see New York waiting an entire season to unwrap their number 3 overall pick and find out what they have.
John, you're doing work with the Patriots, and, we don't talk a whole lot about them except that this summer all the guys writing the books on the falling apart of the kingdom, and Brady hates Kraft, who hates Belichick, and they all hate each other, and, this is going to end badly, and all the TB12 and all of that stuff. You're now writing there. You're now on the inside of it. I don't expect to look up at Thanksgiving and have them be less than 6-2, and I expect that if the Ravens are playing in January, there'll be a bus trip loaded up to go to Foxborough because I don't see Miami or the Jets or Buffalo being the boogeyman to come get them at this point. We all wonder how long the band's going to stay together. But, boy, the Palace intrigue part of this has become its own little cottage industry, I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it was an off-season like any other, and this wasn't all just, a projection. There was real tensions, and there are real tensions. I agree with you. Who in this division is really going to take them down? I don't see it. I don't see a team that's going to win 11 to their 10 or win 12 to their 11. I don't see where Brady and Belichick are going to go into open warfare despite whatever tensions might exist. And I think they're real. I'm not denying them.
Well, they're both almost like military guys, right? So whatever the commander tells them to do, that's sort of kind of their mindset to some degree, that it's business, right? I mean, literally, right?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways they got a taste of what the reaction would be if this thing went down in a fiery mass of hubris, and they got a little vision of and how that was going to affect their legacy. I think they're both going to keep it in check this year, do what they have to do, put their head down, do their jobs, win football games, and take their shot again to get back, to the big stage of the Super Bowl. I don't know if they will, but I don't think this thing is going to go down in just a inevitable, ugly spectacle. If the dynasty is truly over, I think it's going to lose steam just a little at a time. I don't expect a fireball at the end. I really don't. And I look at the AFC. How can you not, at the moment, put them in the final 2 or 3 in terms of favorite for the Super Bowl out of the AFC? I don't know who you would actually put over them and feel great about it.
Well, there are no great teams at this point. Don Banks joining us here. He's out on Twitter as well as at The Athletic and Patriots.com. Last thing for you, I didn't get a chance to hear your Randy Moss stuff and or even some thoughts on Ray Lewis on the backside of the speeches and whatnot. I didn't think it was a tremendously memorable Saturday night in Canton. I thought Brian Dawkins was unbelievable. I thought Kramer was unbelievable. Boy, Randy Moss still really carries this edge to him where he doesn't smile much, does he?
Well, I mean, that is Randy. Like him or loathe him, I've always respected that you kind of get what you get from Randy, and you kind of know how he's going to come across. Spoke to him Friday late afternoon over at the media center for 45 minutes, and he ranged from, he was borderline angry and defiant about the coverage he got during his career that he thought was unfair, and yet he was getting all this love and adulation as he goes into the hall, and he didn't like the juxtaposition of that. He was sometimes in awe of his fellow Hall of Famers, having just come from the Ray Nitschke Memorial Luncheon and hearing all the tales from his predecessors and getting, to be part of that fraternity and club for the first time. And at times he's insightful. I always found when he opened his mouth, generally a good amount of truth comes out, and it's usually very straight shooting type of observations. Again, he's not everybody's easiest subject to get their hands and their mind wrapped around. I enjoyed covering him because he was colorful. He had a way of talking that no one else has. And, he was a force of nature back when I covered him in 98, 99 in Minnesota. He absolutely was unlike any talent that had ever hit the NFL field. And in a lot of ways, his career lagged in the middle. The Oakland chapter wasn't pretty in a lot of ways. New England totally resurrected his career, put him back on the trajectory towards the Hall of Fame. And I really think he was one of the most interesting and unique talents in NFL history. But I agree with you. I thought Saturday night was fine. I loved Jerry Kramer's talk, to be honest. I thought that was the highlight. Ray wrapped it up with a revival meeting for 33 minutes at the end, right down to the wireless mic and the hanky. It really had a lot of quintessential Ray.
A podium would have benefited him. I keep saying that. A podium would have kept him. It would have kept the speech from not being a TED Talk that got away from him.
Yeah.
I think the speech really got away from him.
I kept thinking, what are the other Hall of Famers thinking? Because, I'm sorry, but it was a little self-indulgent for him to just roam all around like he owned the entire stage, and he went longer than anybody else. That was expected. They put him in the cleanup hole, so to speak. But he had highlights. He definitely had some nice moments. I thought Moss had some nice moments. Kramer, to me, tied everything together. The man waited 45 years for that turn on stage. He made the most of it. I think everybody up there wearing a gold jacket wished they could have played with Lombardi and Lombardi's Packers by the time Jerry Kramer sat down.
Don Banks, we wish you well this year. I don't know when our paths are going to cross, but I think we're going to have a good football team. And usually when we have a good football team, guys like you come around and want to watch it. So the Flacco-Lamar thing, you expect that to be copacetic in your mind?
Lamar?
Yeah, the fact that they're going to be bringing him in whenever they want for chicanery, that is a fascinating concept for me in a Joe Flacco, John Harbaugh world. I just want to see. I want to see how they do it. That's the interesting, intriguing thing. They can say, he's going to be on the field, but we're going to find out. Our eyes are going to tell us. I think it has tremendous potential to be effective. I think it could fall flat. And kind of really kill maybe the vibe that the offense is feeling in any particular moment if they get too tricky. There's a lot of choices out there as far as how this could go. But just passing the eyeball test, he looks like he should be able to move the chains a little bit using his skill sets. And I like that they're going to take that outside the box approach. It's just that sometimes if you don't do it well, you don't have the right timing, it can fall flat. We'll see. All right, Don Banks is at The Athletic as well as at Bleacher Report and at Patriots.com. And always a great, great follow, even for some Springsteen insights out at Don Banks on Twitter. You can find me out on the Buy a Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you are. Also, our morning newspaper delivers at 7 a.m. each and every morning, courtesy of our friends at Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com, as well as the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel, where they're racing this weekend. The Maryland Million is October the 20th, and you can always find the Laurel entries on the front of WNST.net, as well as in our morning newspaper. Last but never least, any breaking news, Adam Jones changes his mind. You'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home and getting you ready for fake football with the Rams on Thursday night. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the interwebs go. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.